Hi, I'm Scott and welcome to Goldwing Docs. Today I've got a story that I didn't think I'd be talking about this week or this year even, and it has to do with the end of the Goldwing. Coming up next. So this story is just breaking. It came out just a few hours ago. So I'm just throwing together this video. You can tell I'm not doing a whole lot of production here. I usually have this stuff really good in my head. I memorize and research and all this stuff so that I can just talk from the cuff. But today I've written myself notes to make sure that I get this right. So what we're talking about here is potentially the end of the Honda Goldwing. To get a little bit of a background, there's emission standards in Europe that are called the Euro standards. And so the Euro 1 was 1992, Euro 2, 96 came out. That one affected motorcycles. Euro 3 came out in 2000. That one also affected motorcycles a little bit differently than cars. Starting with Euro 4 in 2005, all vehicles were affected. Euro 6 is 2014. Euro 7, they think, is going to come out in 2025. There's also intermediate standards like the 6A, 6B, 6C. So in between the big number changes, they keep bumping up the standards. And what those standards are for emissions. So it limits carbon monoxide, nitrous oxide, hydrocarbons, particulate for like diesel, and each increasing emission standard increases or rather decreases the amount of emissions that the vehicles are allowed to emit. And they're talking about new vehicles here. So new vehicles must have less emissions than each of these standards in order to be sold. And there are some changes such as vehicles sold new must be able to meet those standards for the first 100,000 miles. That's now gone. The vehicles for Euro 6, I think Euro 7 now have to meet those standards for the life of the vehicle. This is somewhat similar to the EPA in the US and CARB, which is the California emission standards. The Euro standards are much more strict than the US standards, particularly in carbon monoxide. So what car and bike manufacturers typically do is they will build one platform that meets the most strict standards for the markets that they're going to be selling to. Now, if it's going to be a local market, for instance, if Tata is making a car that's only going to be sold in India, they don't care about Euro standards, so they're going to make the thing polluting as much as they can get away with in India. But for global market vehicles, which most of these cars are, they will build the vehicles that will fit the strictest standards, and that ensures that those vehicles can be sold worldwide. There are examples in Europe, particularly Paris. I know London has some. I think Manchester and England have these ULEZ or ultra low emission zones, where if your vehicle exceeds a certain amount of emissions, and they base that usually on which standard it's built to. So if your vehicle doesn't meet those standards, you actually get an extra fee in order to travel in those areas because they want to keep the pollution down. So if you have an older vehicle, you're going to pay more just to drive places because it doesn't meet the emission standards of the newer vehicles. And there are some newer places, I think Paris is one of them, where if you have a vehicle that only meets an older standard because it's an older vehicle, you're not allowed to drive there at all. So your older Goldwing might not even be able to drive to Paris anymore because it's not allowed, it's too old. In addition, taxes on the cars, they are taxing the cars based on the emissions. So cars with higher emissions, they're taxing them higher, so it's going to cost you more. They're really trying to push people to electric vehicles. And I know Honda, both for their cars and for their motorcycles, has pledged to change all their vehicles to fully electric by 2040. So how is this affecting us today? Well, Japan is this fall implementing much tougher emission standards for their vehicles. So Japanese manufacturers are obviously going to build their vehicles to meet that standard. And those standards are going to align with some of the future stricter standards of Euro 7 and other markets in the country. However, there are quite a few motorcycles that do not and cannot meet those standards. Now, some of the air-cooled cruisers just have no hope of ever meeting those emission standards. and they have been discontinued in markets overseas because there's just nothing they can do to make them meet those standards. They still sell them here in the US because our standards are much lower. However, the Japanese manufacturers have realized that there are motorcycles currently that they're made that cannot and will not meet these new standards. So it was announced today that all the Japanese motorcycle manufacturers are cutting models from their lines that won't meet these new standards that are coming this fall in Japan. Some of the motorcycle manufacturers are just making changes to those motorcycles. Notably, they're making the engines bigger, because if the engine is bigger, it's going to make more power at a slower RPM. So the power remains the same, RPM comes down, load on the engine comes down, which means the emissions comes down. So just simply by enlarging the displacement of the engine, they lower the emissions on the motorcycle. Therefore, the motorcycle can pass the new Japanese standards coming. However, there are motorcycles in production today where that's not practical to re-engineer, or there's just no hope that they will ever pass these standards. Between Honda, Suzuki, Yamaha, and Kawasaki, they are killing off 20 different models of motorcycles because of this Japanese standard coming this fall. That's 10% of the 190 different models made in Japan today. Of those 20 models, 10 of those are being killed at Honda, which is the largest motorcycle manufacturer in Japan. And 3 of those models mentioned are the Bentley scooter, which I don't think we even have here. I don't even know what it looks like. It's apparently used for a lot for deliveries. The CB400 Super 4, it's a very old design, so not surprising. However, it then noted, and it depends on where you see this report, some reports say Goldwings, all Goldwings are gone. Other reports say some Goldwing models. So it's not quite sure whether they're saying they're discontinuing Goldwings altogether or just some of the Goldwings. The models being discontinued, some of them are like the Yamaha FJR 1300. If you look at the list of motorcycles from other manufacturers, it seems like mostly the big bikes are the ones that are being discontinued that aren't meeting these standards. The smaller ones don't seem to be affected as much. If it's all Goldwings, then, well, that's it. Game over. It's been nice. The Goldwing is finished until maybe one day they come out with a hybrid or an electric version. I know there's been some patent filings along the ways which usually you see early in the development process. Whether that will happen or not, it remains to be seen. If only some of the Goldwing models are being discontinued, I suspect it's going to be the manual transmission models. The reason for that is because with the DCT, the computer that runs that transmission can be programmed to shift at a lower RPM, thereby limiting the emissions coming out of the bike. They could just lower the red line on the engine. They could program the transmission to not allow higher RPM shifts. They may have the transmission override your manual shifting with the shift buttons. That's a possibility that only the manual transmission Goldwings are being discontinued. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. But for sure, some Goldwings at least are being discontinued as of this year. What does it mean for you? If you are thinking of buying a new Goldwing, now's the time, particularly I think if you were thinking about buying a manual transmission Goldwing. If that's on your wish list, you should head down to the Honda dealership and get your order in today. There is an extensive discussion on this in the Goldwing Docs forum. I will leave a link to it in the description below. There's all kinds of links to articles on what's happening, news articles, discussions. So if you're interested in this and you want some more information, I encourage you to click on that link in the description and have a look at the topic on this on the Goldwing Docs website. All right, not the most wonderful news, but I hope that's of some help to you. If you like what you saw here, please click like, subscribe, click that little bell. It really helps us out when you do that. Plus, you get notified every time we post one of these videos. And if you haven't checked out the Goldwing Docs forum before, we have 91,000 members there. Goldwing owners, just like you, friendly people just waiting to say hello. Thanks for watching.